I scorch the earth with these hot lines for the millionth time. Fire and brimstone erupting from the microphone. I steal the show and like a thief in the night.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode. And we're recording on a Thursday. A lot of people might listen on a Friday, but we're recording Thursday, and today's like Christmas Eve for us, buddy. We're a day away from the start of the high school football season, and it's going to be my 30th year. This will be my 30th high school football season coming into this year.
Wow, man. I can remember these days, man. It's like I would put my football uniform out over the bed. Like, forget the school clothes. I put my football uniform out on the bed the night before game night, man. This is a fun time.
Yeah, before we go any further, I'd just like to thank our title sponsor. It's Graham Auto Mall. Whether you're cruising in for a new ride or keeping your current one in top shape, Graham Auto Mall has you covered. Shop a huge selection of new and pre-owned vehicles or trust their expert service team to keep you on the road. If you're listening to this podcast and you're in the market for a vehicle, do yourself a favor and stop by Graham at 1515 West 4th Street in Mansfield or visit GrahamAutomall.com. Graham Auto Mall, your hometown dealer. And and like I said, in 30 years, I don't know that there's ever been this much excitement for a season. There's a lot of teams in the area who can do a lot of, or expecting a lot of big things. Shelby and Lexington here in Richland County. Down in Knox County, Danville was a state semifinalist last year. They lost in the state semifinals to Hillsdale, and Hillsdale's a neighbor to the north. Ashland also has some big expectations. We're joined this week by Ashland quarterback and Appalachian State recruit Nathan Bernhard. And Nate, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Listen to this stat line. 22 for 25 passing, 350 yards, 4 touchdowns. 15 carries, 172 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's 522 total yards and 8 touchdowns, and that was in one game last year.
Wow.
Nathan did that against West Holmes last year. That's putting it together.
Wow, that's half my career right there. right there.
For the season, Nate completed 181 out of 299 passes, 28 almost 2,900 yards, 24 touchdowns with 4 interceptions. He didn't throw an interception in his final 125 passing attempts. You were a high school quarterback. I don't know if you won 125. Well, you may not have attempted 125 passes.
No way. No way.
Just the 4 interceptions. Didn't throw an interception for the final 6 games. Also rushed for 1,200 yards, 22 more touchdowns. For his career, he's up over almost to 6,000 yards passing and 1,500 yards rushing. When you add it all up, it's 7,400 total yards, 75 touchdowns, and he still has a senior year in front of him. That's doing the job.
Yeah, that's amazing. Especially for underclassmen. And I'm gonna say something, even though we're gonna talk about him real quick, like he's not here for a second. But he's, that is outstanding for an underclassman, and just to have that type of the skill set and playing like a seasoned veteran. When you got a senior year coming up, that is so impressive for me to watch young guys really perform that way when they got a senior year ahead is really impressive.
Right. Nathan, let's start with your commitment to Appalachian State. You committed in April. I think you had 14 FBS offers, including Power 4 offers from Penn State, Michigan, a whole bunch of big-time programs. What distinguished App State from some of those other higher profile places?
Yeah, I think the landscape of college football changed a lot throughout my recruitment. And, when I started out my freshman year and I got my first offer from Penn State, and, Mike Yurcich was the offense coordinator at that time. He's who offered me. It was kind of a surprise because they had only talked to me one time before that, and he offered me in February of my freshman year. So, it just kicked up from there. And, the transfer portal year to year has just gotten more crazy, and there's less opportunities for high school athletes. And I think just looking at some of the schools that had offered me in the situations I would be in at that school, you're maybe looking at they're going to bring in a transfer in front of you. So just really looking at the opportunity to play with also, getting the coaching that you're looking for. I feel like App State had both of those qualities because looking at their coaching staff with Dow Loggins is going to be a first-year head coach, and he's had NFL experience and several NFL experienced guys on that staff.
Right.
And, App State's a program that's been known to win, and I should have an opportunity to compete for the job early there.
Right, and you and I have talked about this before, but the landscape of college football recruiting looks nothing like what you encountered in the mid-1990s.
Well, and it's so difficult for the high school athlete, because you're not only – there was a time where you're just competing against other high school athletes. Well, now you got to compete against high school athletes, junior college transfers from other schools, and everyone. It's a free-for-all, obviously. So – it's great to hear you took that all into account in your recruiting process to understand what was best for you. And, I want to hear you talk a little bit more about how important it was for you to the prospect of playing right away and how much that played into your decision, like playing or the opportunity to play right away. How big was that when you made your decision?
Obviously, anytime you step into the college football program, there's guys who they've played college football. They've been in college for several years, so nothing is guaranteed. You're entitled to nothing. So I think you have to have that mindset when you step in there. But I think the coaches at App State made it clear that, hey, you're going to have an opportunity to compete for the job when you come here. And that's something that, other bigger schools, they'll say, hey, you never know. Yeah, you can. We want you always competing, but when you look at like a Michigan or something where you got Bryce Underwood, they're paying him $10.5 million over 3 or 4 years. They're gonna pay the guy they're paying $10 million, right? He better be worth that money, or
right.
You're in trouble. So when you look at situations like that, and you're gonna be looking at sitting 2-3 years, and you don't know, they're gonna bring in 4 stars, 5 stars behind you, and they're gonna bring in guys in the portal who are as highly touted. So I think the most important thing is to get on the field, get film, get coach, get experience.
And a wise man sitting beside me once told me they recruit you and then they start recruiting your replacement right away. I mean, that's the business of it.
That's the business, and they have to do that in order to protect themselves. So I'm always a proponent of young people and their families going into the process, protecting themselves and understanding what do you want to get out of this process, and you can't hold back and get so caught up in the name that you lose sight of what you want out of the process. And that's great to hear that you looked at the entire scope of what you want to get out of this, education and playing and what it means to you. That's cool, man. That's good.
We talked with Braden Fogel last week a little bit about NIL and what that was like for him. What was it like for you? And when did you with the changing landscape of college football, did you have to get prepped on that? And how'd you kind of go about navigating all that?
Yeah, so when I started getting recruited, my first spring visit would have been, I think that would have been like spring of 23. So at that point, NIL was kind of new. It had been in for, I think, a year or two at that point, but it was still, everyone was trying to figure it out. So, I mean, the first visit I went on was at Penn State, and then I later went to one at Ohio State. They kind of would brief you on that there and kind of talk about, not like talking about NIL or money with you or anything, because I was a freshman at that point. It was just a blanket, talking to parents and everything. Like,
just how to go about it.
This is how the NIL world works right now. Okay. And I think it's even changed since then, because now collectives are going to come into a factor. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to just be, boosters, donors, and NIL collectives, but the revenue sharing. I meant revenue sharing, but that's what's changed. But that's going to change everything, because the school's going to be actually allowed to give players money and facilitate it that way. But yeah, I think, it's definitely changed a lot as I've gone on, and there wasn't a lot of beforehand when I got into it, like me knowing about it, but they do like tell you about it. So
it's got to be exciting to like the prospect of getting paid now, right?
Yeah, I mean, guys for all these years have played college football for the love of the game, and I think that's still there, and I think you still need to have that, because it's not easy, because football's hard. I mean, there's a lot of time spent into that, and guys spend all that time without getting paid at one point, and just because they love the game, and I think you still have to have that, but it definitely helps when you're getting paid, and that's definitely a nice thing, setting you up for the future.
You made your decision in April, which means you probably didn't have to go out on the summer camp circuit this past summer. I mean, how important is that summer camp stuff now, and is it kind of a relief that you didn't have to do it this past summer?
Yeah, it's definitely a relief. I wasn't the biggest fan of the camp circuit. You know, just doing all those. It's a lot of travel. It's very exhausting, and you know, I think when I was a freshman, I went to so many camps. I kind of overloaded the camps. You know, maybe didn't perform as good as I wanted to at some camps, just because I would go from one camp, you know, fly somewhere else and go to a camp the next day. So, you know, it was cool in some ways to go see a bunch of different places, but, you know, probably wasn't the most fun thing to have to do. But, you know, you got some things out of it, and, you know, it's led me to where I am today. And, yeah, not having to do any camps this summer is nice. You know, not a lot of guys in my grade have to do that at this point, because the recruiting process has become earlier than it was maybe when you were in high school. So a lot of things are straightened up by when you're going into your senior year. But I didn't have to deal with going on OVs and that kind of thing. Some guys like that, but, you know, I've been on enough visits. It wasn't a priority for me to have to, you know, go see a bunch of places.
I mean, that whole camp thing probably didn't exist in the mid-'90s. I mean, did you go to a bunch of camps?
Jeez, no. You know, recruiting, you know, and I know we're going to talk about this, but it's a different world. Recruiting in those days was what they saw on, not even so much on video. You know, you had recruiters in the stands. They had their little notepads, and they got to see you with their own eyes, and that's what they pretty much relied on. Of course, you sent video, and those coaches that were on next level sent in video of their players, and, you know, that was what they saw, but that was it. You know, there were camps and summer camps that you went to, but skill position guys, you know, quarterbacks, coaches wanted to see you in the heat of the game. How are you going to respond to competition? So the camp thing and throwing in shorts and T-shirts wasn't as valued as it seems to be today. You know that skill level, they wanted to see you under fire. Right. And, you know, but, you know, right now it's interesting for you. I'm interested to know for you, you know, not having to go through, you know, so much of that because you made your decision. What has that done to your mindset going into, you know, this season, and how has that been able to, you know, when you think about going into this season, and how has that kind of has that settled your mind, Indy? Has that allowed you to be more focused on what you have to do going into this football season? Yeah,
I think it relieves a little bit of the worry about, okay, where am I going to be? Where am I going to be committed to? You know, where am I going to be in January? But so you can just focus on your senior season, focus on having fun, having the best season you can have. Yeah, so I think I think it definitely relieves a lot of the stress from you. And yeah, just to touch on what you talked about earlier, it is kind of crazy to think about, you know, the quarterback position, such a nationally recruited position, that guys are watching film on so many different people from so many different places that, yeah, there's not a lot of in-person evaluation other than, you know, in games. Like, I'll have a coach from App come and watch me at some point during the season, but that's the first time they're going to watch me play in person. That's right. I mean, I've only had two coaches, or I had one coach, and it was Ryan Day, because we played against his son. Yeah. That's only so. It is kind of wild that that's the way it is, but it's because recruiting is such a national thing now. It's not regional, so it's really hard to, you know, do that. Yeah, yeah. In those days, there was no, you know, and you said it. It was regional. You know what I mean? There were the schools that recruited nationwide. Of course, you could end up going to a school far away, but most likely there was the schools around you that really wanted to get a look at you back in those days anyway. Right.
Now, listen to this resume. Appalachian State head coach Dow Loggins, 17 years in the NFL as an offensive coordinator or quarterbacks coach for the Titans, the Browns, the Chicago Bears, the Dolphins, the Jets. Associate head coach, a guy named Clyde Christensen, was the quarterbacks coach for 4 years in Tampa Bay and at the tail end of Tom Brady's career. I would suspect that part of your decision to go to App State, that was part of your decision to go to App State, was having guys like that kind of mentor you. That was a huge part. There's, I think, around 90 years of NFL experience across the whole coaching staff, and I think when every kid's dream is to play in the NFL, you want to go somewhere where there's guys like that. Looking at, you know, Coach Loggins, obviously he's plenty of NFL experience, and as well as developing quarterbacks in college. He took Spencer Rattler from,
what looked like a gloom career, where his career wasn't heading in the right direction when he transferred to South Carolina. And, now he got drafted in the 4th round, and he's still on the Saints and he's competing for a starting job. So he helped turn his career around. And then Lenore Sellers, he could be in the Heisman running this year. Great quarterback, and that was someone that Dow recruited, brought him in, developed him, and, you see where he is now. So I think seeing that also is a big part of it. And then, like you said, Coach Clyde Christensen, his experience with –
all he did was work with Tom Brady for 3 years, and Brady led the NFL in every category during those times.
Not only that, but he was with Peyton in Indianapolis.
Right.
I don't know if you saw that, but he was with Peyton in Indianapolis for, I think, 10 years, over 10 years, or maybe Indianapolis, a little bit in Denver. But he has a great relationship with Peyton and Tom. And I think being able to have connections with those guys, the coaches do, and maybe eventually I'll have connections with those guys, just the knowledge that they have and the experience it's a great asset.
Right, right. Appalachian State's located, and we talked a little bit about it off air, in Boone, North Carolina. The stadium seats 30,000. Last year, the attendance was like 33 or 30. They packed the place for every game. I would imagine playing in a football mad town like that. I mean, granted, it's not 100,000 seats, but it's going to be exciting to play in a passionate place like that.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about a group of 5 school, it is great to go play. Like, obviously, everyone dreams of playing at a Penn State, at Ohio State, at a Michigan in front of 100,000 people. But there is something to be said about the tradition and the culture at App State that that town, I mean, they care about football. I think the capacity is around 35,000, and then they have like the grass area at the end. So like they fill it up with, I think, over 35,000 people there on a game day. And when you're selling out every game, I think they've already sold out several home games. So when there's that type of passion, it's definitely you can substitute for the 100,000 and still feel pretty good about the home crowd that you're gonna be playing in front of.
And I think even casual college football fans remember what happened last time Appalachian State went to went to Michigan. I mean, you were probably pretty young when that happened, or maybe I don't even know how long ago that was now. But I mean,
it was the year I was born.
Is that right?
Yeah. So like, obviously I know about it.
Now we're dating ourselves a little bit.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
App State's got a crazy history, though. I mean, I didn't know they they were really successful in FCS.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They won a couple national titles, according to Wikipedia. I'm just reading up on my App State now, but yeah, that's a really rich program.
We went over your high school stats from a year ago. It was the greatest junior season in the history of the program, and when you consider some of the quarterbacks that have come through that program, that's saying something. I mean, if there's a Mount Rushmore of Ashland quarterbacks, I mean, Taylor Housewright's on that list. He led Ashland to the state semifinals before going on to AU and having an All-American career. And Marcus Fuller comes along a couple years later and breaks all of Taylor's records and goes to Brown. I mean, how much? Again, you were young or not born when those guys were playing, but I mean, do you know of those guys?
Yeah, I do know a lot. I mean, I have an older brother who's actually around Marcus's age. He's a year younger than Marcus, so. I was really little when he was playing, but I still know about it. He's told me about it, and I actually, I've talked to Taylor, several times, and he actually offered me when he was at Jacksonville State.
Nice.
I've gotten to, talk to him, and we kind of have that shared experience with being from Ashland. So yeah, I definitely know the history of, the guys that have come before me, and, there's a pretty rich history of quarterbacks at Ashland.
And they kind of paved the way. We were talking when you were coaching at senior high. You guys had to change everything that you did because of Taylor Housewright and because of Marcus Fuller.
Yeah, absolutely. Their quarterback play, really, and I'll go so far as to say their quarterback play kind of changed how this area, how we started to defend football and how we played football in this area because of their quarterback play. And I'm curious how you look at. How you have evolved as a quarterback, and now going on to school at App State following this year. What types of things do you feel like you still need to work on? Are there things as a quarterback that you feel like you still need to work on, or going into this year that you want to improve as far as your quarterback skill set? What are those things that you're going into the year feeling like, hey, I need to work on this to become the best quarterback I can for Ashland High School? For my senior year?
Yeah, I think something that with every big quarterback, every tall quarterback, the question's going to be, can he move in the pocket? Is his footwork good? So I think that's always something that you're trying to improve on, is your footwork and your pocket mobility. Because obviously I could run out in space, but quick twitchy movements in the pocket in short space, that's always a question. So I think that's something you're always looking to improve upon. I think anything with football in the quarterback position, it's a mental game. So I think you're progressing mentally as you go and as you play, and I think the goal is to continue to progress mentally and with your ability to analyze and digest defenses and interpret what they're doing and be able to react on the fly. I think that's something you get with playing time and with games, and thankfully I've gotten a lot of experience having started some games as a freshman. Had a whole sophomore year to start last year, so I've had a lot of high school football experience.
And you mentioned it a little. Older brother Zach was a quarterback at Ashland. He went on to AU and had a good career there. I mean, has he kind of been instrumental in your development?
Yeah, I think he's my older brother. I look up to him, so I think in that regard, yes, he's been able to give me advice on the process, and even though his was a little different, he still has good advice when it comes to getting recruited, going to college football, and high school football and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think so.
And just tell us a little bit. I mean, what he's doing. Hayden, you know a little bit about it. The I don't know if it's a recruiting sort of service that he offers. I mean, he does some digital media stuff, right?
Yeah. So Hustle, HSLD. He's doing a mix of digital media, sports apparel, and that kind of thing. So he started that up in 2023. It's just been kind of a thing to bring sports media to the area and cover teams that a lot of teams you see in Columbus, they have this kind of coverage.
Right.
And so it's something new that they've offered, and I think it's a pretty cool thing. Obviously, it's allowed us to have a ton of pictures, videos, stuff that you get to remember later on for sure. And it's grown. It's blown up pretty quick, and I know he's it's really been progressing. So.
Well, and you don't have to put a shameless plug out there, because if people haven't checked it out yet, they need to, because as someone who likes to do that kind of stuff, I've already looked at some of the stuff that's come out this year, even the scrimmage against Ontario. It's ridiculous, so people need to go check that out.
Yeah, for sure. They got some talented guys doing the media over there. Wesley Seafang, he's the guy who my brother's had doing it the whole time, and he was pumping out stuff at AU that was really good, and he's been able to collect some other guys that are pretty talented.
Your dad was a football player at AU. Mom played volleyball at AU. Is that right?
No, my mom did play volleyball at AU. So she 4-year starter at AU for volleyball. But my dad, he actually played football at Ohio Northern.
Oh, at Ohio Northern.
Yeah.
Okay. Nonetheless, I would imagine family reunions at the Bernhards can get a little competitive, huh? Is there a lot of competition?
Yeah, no, we're competitive people by nature, and I think that's with my dad and all he's accomplished, and my brother obviously took in his footsteps. So I think we're always kind of competing with each other. It's just the way it is. That's
how athletes are developed, right? It starts early, and it's not just on the field at high school.
Yeah, and the family, that family competitiveness is, especially brothers, and that's those are your first games. Those games in the house, those games in the room. Those are your first games. That's how you learn to compete. And me being the older brother, I had a little brother that was, I probably did bully him, but you know what I mean. That's just the way it goes. But it makes them, usually your younger brother becomes the better version of you.
Right.
And that's just there's no way to stop that. And it's because of how those things come about. So when you look back and now you're becoming and I'm gonna call you a star because I've watched you play, so I'm gonna go ahead and call you a star here in this area. What has that done to your role in terms of being a leader for your team? And I know you've been the quarterback here the last couple of years, but going into this year and specifically, how do you feel like your role has changed, and what does your role as leader mean for this team specifically going into this year?
Yeah, I think with me being, a future going into college as a quarterback, and I think that amplifies everything. guys look up to you. They see that what you've accomplished on the field, and the college looks, and then they look at that and they look up to that, and I think that garners some respect. So I think in that regard, you just have to lead because you have that respect. You have those eyes on you, so you have to lead by example and show the right things to do.
As a freshman, you came in and like you said, you played a little bit. If memory serves, you got hurt that year, right? Were you injured that season?
Yeah, so I actually started my first game at DN.
Okay.
So yeah, my first varsity start was at DN. I played a half at DN, and then the starter got hurt. I don't know. It was a weird deal, but so I went in the second half and played pretty well. Started the second game, and we won that game. Third game, the original starter was back, and they wanted me to be able to play some defense. So they're I was playing defense, and they're bringing me in to run the ball in goal line situation. So they're kind of doing that, and I fractured my fibula playing defense. So it was like run the ball, like hairline fracture. Kept playing on it because I didn't know, and then it broke. So I came back like week 9 from that, and played a little bit at the end of that game. Started week 10 against Lex. We were down 21-0 in the first half. Came back, we won that game, and then we played Toledo Central Catholic in the first round of the playoffs. So
they have a habit of ending people's seasons around here. They've been doing it for years and years. Did the injury set you back at all developmentally, or you feel like you were able to kind of rebound from that?
No, I don't think it. I think I was fine. I mean, it wasn't something that was detrimental. It was just sucks. You just had to recover from it. And, luckily, I had a very good team that year. I mean, that team underachieved, in my opinion. That could have been a lot better. I mean, we had a great receiver core: John Metzger, Landon McFrederick. Those guys were studs. I mean, and then my whole line, they were all seniors, so there was a lot of experience there. The whole receiver core was senior. So, I mean, I threw for 300 yards in every start I had as a freshman.
Right.
Just because, I was a good team. So, yeah, for sure.
Then as a sophomore, Scott Valentine came back for your sophomore year. I mean, dealing with coaching changes, is that a challenge?
I think it can be, and, because it's a different system.
Right.
But, Coach V's a familiar face in Ashland, and so I don't think it was as difficult as maybe a coaching change with someone completely different would be.
Right. And 1,700 yards, I think, something like that as a sophomore. I mean, was there a time when the light kind of switched on? I mean, did you feel like there was a time when, hey, I'm getting this figured out right now? I mean, are you still figuring it out, or?
Yeah, no, it was pretty tough because when I stepped foot on the field as a freshman, it felt like everything was going good. You're throwing for 300 every game, and you think that's the normal thing. But when all those guys graduated, we lost like 23 seniors. We come in and we're starting a bunch of sophomores and juniors, and things were kind of rough. We had to play slow and try to grind the clock down and limit possession. So that didn't bode well for big numbers. Obviously we had a lot of close games, and we lost some of those close games, and that's something that changed in the next year, where we played a lot of close games last year, but we ended up winning those close games, and that was the big difference. And I think just the returning talent we had, that's what you see in those numbers there. I mean, football's a team game. So
right. And then going into this year, I mean, you guys did what you did. I mean, last year you guys 10-0 for the 5th time in 118 years, something like that. Two playoff wins. One of them was over DeSales, and a lot of people over that way are saying that's the biggest win in program history. Does that experience, and a lot of those kids from last year are back this year, including yourself, of course, but is that the playoff experience last year, does it lend itself to what you guys are hoping is a really, really big season this year?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of our skill guys and some of our, probably best players are back. Me, Gunnar Lacey, 2 All-Ohio guys. And then most of my receiver core is back as well, but we only have 1 lineman coming back, so we had to fill some spots there, and there's a lot of spots on defense that we kind of had to fill, but I think we've done a good job finding guys to step up. So I think we have the talent to have a good season, another good season, and hopefully exceed what we did last year.
And that's that's a tall order. I mean, a 10-0 team in the OCC. I mean, there's a lot of good teams year in and year out. I mean, last year there were some teams that had been good in the recent past, senior high, that struggled a little bit. Nonetheless, I mean, it's a challenge every week.
Yeah, every week it is, and trying to for your football team, and that's why I love football, because it's the ultimate team sport, and no matter how great you are at certain skill positions, if the team or the unit can't come together and execute, it's going to be tough. Talk a little bit about, you mentioned Coach Valentine, and like you said, he is, to me, he's like coaching royalty around this area. I think he's done a great job. Talk to me about him as not just, I know he's a great coach, but talk to me about him as your development as a quarterback, and because he's done such a great job with quarterbacks down the line. How does he impact your play as a quarterback, and implementing all the things that go with your passing game and just your offensive attack, and how he affects how you play?
Yeah, I think first of all, Coach V is a leader of men. I think he's just a great leader overall, a great person, and I think obviously he's so much experience that he's able to offer that insight, and I think his offense allows the quarterback a lot of freedom, a lot of opportunity to grow. So I think as I've played, that growth has happened, and it's just a product of what he has you do on offense with the freedom you have, and to throwing the ball, seeing defenses, and it's really up to you out there in the 5 wide, and it's up to you to see what the defense is doing and know what you're doing, and you're gonna have to deliver the ball. So, without
giving away too many trade secrets, I mean, when you walk to the, are you able to change plays as you see fit when you walk up there? How's that all work? How whole thing work?
Yeah, all I'll say, I think, is just that your freedom as a quarterback grows as you play and with experience. So I think those type of things, you gain that as you play, and I'm going to my senior year now, so I think those type of opportunities and, that flexibility and that ability to control the offense, stuff like that grows.
Yeah, I would think, I mean, his processing skills seem like they are certainly other level. I mean, that's what you need at that position, right?
Well, and from a coaching perspective, I couldn't imagine what that would be like, having a guy coming in with 4 years of experience, and it gives you so much creative freedom,
right?
Because, like he said, you're looking so much. A young guy, you're watching guys run their routes, but at his stage, he's watching the defense and seeing what they're doing. So that's a big difference in development when you're trying to teach quarterback play. So that is the biggest key, because when you can do that, you can, as a play caller, you can count on your quarterback to get you in the right play and the right to make the better decision for your offense. So that's how you can be so successful. That's how you can make deep playoff runs.
Right. And you talked a little bit about what you need to work on. What do you do well? What do you think you do well as a quarterback?
I think I extend plays. I think I've shown ability to be a playmaker, and with my legs, and being able to extend plays and pass the ball downfield and that kind of thing. But I think I've also shown that I'm able to take what the defense gives me and sustain long drives, and have a high completion percentage in certain games that we need to, with just driving down the field, taking what they give you. So I think I'm flexible in that way, and then with that flexibility, I think in certain games, I do what we need to do to win. And against Worcester last year, I ran the ball 13 straight plays, and that's what we need to do to win. And sometimes it's the opposite. You got to throw the ball every play. So I think that kind of flexibility and just being able to do, what I need to do when my number's called.
Right. And at 6'6" and 230 pounds, something like that. I mean, that's a load that's a big ball carrier.
Yeah, that's huge, man. I think one of the things that's always impressed me about your play and just you as an athlete is being on the football field is one thing, and I think I remember watching you play a football game thinking, he's a good sized quarterback, but then I saw you play a basketball game last year, and I'm thinking, okay, now I saw your size, and and speaking of basketball, were you always how do you feel about basketball? And for so many kids, basketball is like their first love, and then they realize football is like, this might be the sport for me because I'm a bigger kid and all of that, but basketball is their first love. How's basketball in comparison to football for you in terms of liking one sport or the other?
Yeah, I mean, I've played basketball my whole life pretty much, and I did AAU, I did all that. I played with some other guys in the area, Fogel, the Hughes twins at Lexington, some of those guys, and some other guys at Mansfield, Rashad Reed, he's going to be a senior at Mansfield Senior this year. So, yeah, I know I played with those guys growing up, and, I've played basketball all the way up until now. And I don't know if I ever liked it more than football once I started playing football, but, I definitely liked basketball. I think once I got into high school and it was, my focus became more of football, and I wasn't doing all the AAU and stuff, then basketball could get kind of frustrating sometimes because you weren't as skilled as scoring as maybe I once was or what I wanted to be. But I'm still able to do the things that you need to do: defense, rebound, and get some dunks. Those are always fun. So, yeah.
Who's the best football player that doesn't play on the basketball team, but who's the best at basketball?
The best football player.
Shout somebody out. The best football player at basketball that does not play on the basketball team.
Oh yeah, our middle linebacker Gunnar Lacey.
Wow.
Dude, yeah, he can D up. We got him to come to some.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we got him to come to some summer league stuff. He might foul a little bit, but
it's all right.
If he can
football player way to play
exactly.
basketball.
Yeah.
Are there things that translate? Are there things that translate between basketball and football? I mean, footwork seems to me like that would be a big thing. But how about mentally? Are there things that you take from the football field to the basketball court?
Yeah, I think basketball is another sport where you have to react fast. Mm-hmm. I mean, things come at you quickly. So I think anything where you're having to react is beneficial to being a quarterback as well, because that's what quarterback is reading and reacting.
I mean, obviously we talked about it. I mean, you guys have all this time. I mean, what are expectations for this season for you guys? I mean, what's a successful season look like for you guys this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously you see this, heavy is the head that wears the crown, and I think the crown's on our head right now with us being the reigning conference champs, and obviously this is a new team, and, everything that we did last year, that shouldn't matter to us because, this is a new year, so that's how we have to approach it. But I think, the goals stays the same. You got to win an OCC championship. And there's going to be some tough teams in the conference this year. Lex has got a lot of guys back, so, it's going to be, if we see them again week 10, it might be a similar situation that it was last year, everything on the line. And I think, obviously, we lost a big walnut. It would have been regional semis,
mm-hmm.
and they went on to state semifinal. They lost a close one there, too. So I think seeing, that was a team that we had opportunities in that game to, be in that game and possibly win that game. So I think looking at that, we know that, that's where we got to get back to, and we got to get over that hump. And, the goal, I think, for us is just like any other team in Ohio, you want to win a state championship.
Sure.
But I think for our goal is, be the best team that Ashland High School's ever had.
And at some point, if that goes from being a pipe dream to being a reasonable expectation, when you got, I mean, those are big expectations to have to manage, have to juggle. But it seems like there's some teams in the area that are willing to take that.
No, once you get to a place where you get to the playoffs, you start, winning in the postseason, then those pipe dreams come reality. You start seeing teams like, hey, wait a minute. We can play with these teams. It's not like a dream anymore. And you start to see the players around you, and you're like, wait a minute. We've got a 3-4 year starter at quarterback. We've got guys with great experience. We've got great coaching. Why not us? And I think that's the mentality that you have to have. We're league champions, and I think so many teams that have had success in the postseason are those teams that come into the year feeling like we're as good as anyone.
Right.
We just have to perform that way. And I think one of the biggest regrets I have from my coaching times is we were so afraid to say we want the state title. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we always, just as a default mechanism, we're like, don't talk about the state title. We're just going to focus on getting better every day. But if I had to go back, I would say, hey, if that's our goal, let's make that our goal.
Let's
go
verbalize
after it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's importance in both sides of that, because obviously you don't want to look ahead too far.
Right.
You want to be day to day, week to week, focus on each game. As it's an individual season.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, I think everyone's goal in Ohio high school football should be to win a state championship. Why else would you be doing it? So I think that's just the ultimate goal should be for everybody. And I think for us, why not have high goals and aspirations? Because if you don't have confidence and don't believe that those types of things are possible, they won't come to you.
Absolutely.
You guys, your non-conference this year looks completely different than it did a year ago. You got Bay Village to open. I think Dover's in there, Clyde's in there. Those are legit playoff teams. I mean, given the fact that the playoff landscape has changed and that they're only taking 12 it's important to not be 0-2 or 0-3 going into the conference. I mean, how important is it to play good teams and to beat good teams for you guys early on here?
Yeah, I think any team, it's pretty important to be tested.
Yeah.
Because you really find out a lot of things about your team when you're in those big games and you're tested. Obviously we got to handle business against Bay Village and Marion Harding. Those are some teams. Well, Bay Village, I mean, they were a good team last year. They were 6-4. Marion Harding's been a team that struggled, but they got a new coach, so you never know what will happen there. And then Clyde's been a really good program. Been a pretty consistent program. They won a state championship.
Yeah, they're not too many years
as
removed,
recent as
yeah.
2019.
Right.
So, they've proven to be a good program. And obviously, New Philly, Dover, back-to-back weeks. New Philly's always a sound team.
Yeah.
So they're going to give you a tough game no matter who you are. And Dover's also a program that's well respected. And I know they got a new coach this year, so
Right.
it'll be a different look. But I mean, it's still Dover's Dover. And then obviously, you get into the rest of the conference schedule, and you got those other schools like, Madison almost beat us last year.
Right. Took it
Probably should have.
Triple overtime.
In
right?
reality.
Yeah.
So, I mean, week to week, you can't overlook anybody, because you can have a team like that who ended up 2-8 that almost beat us, almost beat Lexington. You gotta be able to, come into those weeks against teams that the record might not be great, but they're gunning for you. So you have to treat it like any other game. So I mean, we'll have some of those, and obviously Lexington is the team that everyone's talking about, because they got a lot of returning talent. They got some ball players on that team. You got Fogel, you got Caudill. So I mean, that's going to be a tough team, but it's a long ways from now. But you look at that, and then you're into the playoffs, and you go from there.
Right. And yeah, if you're fortunate enough to get there, then there's teams in the region like that team in Massillon. They're okay.
Sure. Yep.
And DeSales. I mean, it's a tough region, and you guys were able to navigate it pretty well last year. But I mean, I would imagine that as a guy who likes to compete, I mean, you want to play Massillon at some point.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do want to play against Massillon, because it's one of the most storied programs in Ohio high school football. There's a lot of history there, and that's the team that I think everyone looks at and is like, would love to beat them. Obviously, you don't choose who you get, and we got to see how we do this season. But there's a lot of good teams in our region. Obviously, DeSales, Big Walnut, and then Massillon. There'll probably be some others. I know Taze Valley's usually pretty good,
Right.
and so there's some other schools in there. Some schools that might be on the rise this year, but obviously Big Walnut, they're going to be a really good. They're in a similar situation to us. Like, their star guys are back, and it's going to be a tough region this year.
Right. Have you decided what you want to major in college, or is that even something you've put much thought into?
Yeah, I
yet?
mean, I feel like I've changed my mind on this several times, but right now I'm thinking like the pre-law route.
Okay.
Going into that. I thought about medicine growing up, because that's what my brother did, and that's what my dad did. They went into medicine and the surgery and that kind of thing, but I don't know if that's the route for me. I'm thinking more of the pre-law, and that's what my sister ended up doing. She's in law school right now, so looking at that, I think I'm more interested in that. So
Right. Well, I mean, in the little free time that you do have, what do you do when you're not playing football or playing basketball? I mean,
yeah.
Is there any hanging out with friends, or is it all business all the time?
No, I hang out with friends. I mean, I have a lot of friends that their goals align with me, so I hang out with them all the time, and I think it's important to have those people that I've grown up with, and have those relationships. I think it's an important part of growing up.
And I would imagine beyond the football piece, I mean, the college experience is probably something you're looking forward to kind of figure out who you are,
Yeah, I think it would be cool to see. When I get on campus, you're going to be tested. You're going to get thrown into the fire, and you're going to have to see how you respond. And I think that's going to be an exciting opportunity. And you hope you react well and you develop. And the ultimate goal is you get on the field and you play and have a successful career and see where it goes from there.
Right. I suspect that the folks at Appalachian State are going to be pleased with what they're getting here.
Oh, absolutely, and sometimes it's hard to know. They look at the talent and it's an easy selection, but sometimes it's hard to know what kind of young man they're getting. And I wonder for you, how how'd you feel about just the prospect of playing so far away from home? I know a lot of times that can be a concern for young people. Some people can be, afraid of that. But what was the prospect of playing so far away from home? How did that factor into your choice?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is kind of different with it being it's about 6.5, 7 hours away. So I mean that's pretty far, but it's not insane. It's nothing crazy. It's not like I'm going to the West Coast or anything, but it's still pretty far, especially in comparison to some other schools. Like Michigan's only 2.5 hours away, and Ohio State, that wasn't a school they never offered me, but they were in the mix. That was in the mix for a while. That it could have ended up happening, and that's only an hour away. And so there are schools in the area like that are a lot closer and you're familiar with. Which App wasn't a school I was familiar with until I'd known of it, but never been there until this spring. And nobody from there ever talked to me until the staff from South Carolina moved in there in January. And so it's gonna be a little different, but I feel like I've visited there and I feel comfortable with it. So.
Well, good. I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. We appreciate you stopping by, and the best of luck to you for your senior year.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.